Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I hope you're all doing well today. It's been a little while since I filmed a tarot video. Honestly, a lot of things have been going on, but it's always fun to do a reading, so I figured this is going to be a little bit of a general reading, just seeing what you need to hear right now. Alright, we have the Tower. Okay, so maybe you've been going through a bit of a tower moment in your life, which certainly is something I can relate to, where it feels like almost your entire former life and everything that you had built up is crumbling away, but not so much in a bad sense of like, oh, I don't know what to do, or like I'm losing things. It's almost good. It's like that past version of yourself was just stagnant, or it was not quite where you wanted to be. Like that wasn't the end goal, that was just a stepping stone. But in this process of stepping into this next best version of you, which is a process that you go through many times in your life, you have to let the old self dissolve. And over time, this can get easier or it could get harder depending on how long or what you have invested into this version of self, where maybe you've built up some of your value on that, where it was like, if there was a certain role that you were playing in people's lives or just in the world at large, like what your job was, like you could see yourself as a healer or an artist or something like that, like some part of your identity that you were clinging onto, there could have been this feeling of like, okay, well, I've put my eggs in this basket, like that's who I am, this is how I define myself. But you're starting to understand that as this tower crumbles away, you kind of let go of that, right? Like you can see the crown is falling off here, right? You don't need to be wearing any particular hat. You're already of value simply by existing in the world. So if you want to pivot and take that hat off, you're not inflicting any harm on yourself or others by doing that. It's just like that's what needs to happen for you to build a new tower, to build something new, because you'll have learned from these past experiences, and it's almost like you're building something that's just more expansive, like something your past self couldn't have comprehended. Like where you achieved with that version of your past self was like, that's the best possible thing you could have achieved. Like you did the best you could and you were like in a really great place, right? But then once you got to that best possible place, it's almost like you had like a plateau and you realized like, oh, actually I could go so much higher than this, but it would require a different self. It would require a different person to be doing this. So then you're shifting into this new frame of mind where then you can climb even higher, but then again you're going to hit that plateau and need to kind of reinvent yourself. And that's just the nature of worldly things, is that anything that we define ourselves by in the world is going to one day crumble. Like everything is completely temporary, everything is in flux, nothing is permanent. So anything that you build up in the world on the level of the material world or on the level of ego about how you define yourself, or things that you've built, like whether that's a business or like a physical establishment, anything like that can all be taken away from you in the blink of an eye or simply fade away over time. All right, we have the Five of Pentacles. So I feel like you've really been focused on extending this love and care to other people that you've already felt in yourself and for yourself, and like for maybe specific people in your life, where you kind of got to this point of like understanding how to really have a strong sense of compassion and love and care for people. But I think you're starting to understand that this can radiate out even further, where it doesn't necessarily have to be like, okay, this person is my friend, they're on my team, so I'm going to be nice to them. But it's more like every single person you encounter is you're having this exchange of compassion and love with them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like overstepping any boundaries, right? Like I'm not saying you have to hug strangers on the street, but maybe if that's something you're into, you could be doing that. But it's also like this feeling of just like welcoming people into the warmth, into the love, right? Because it's like some people, they might be living in a state that is almost a little bit loveless, and so then it becomes easy to kind of ice them out, keep them in the cold like that. But instead, when you actually welcome them in with loving arms, and you say something nice to them, like even if they come at you with this kind of aggressive or like just bad vibes, right? If you still meet them with your good vibes, it's almost like you can bring out that love in them that they're not maybe used to receiving, or something like that, where it's almost like what you recognize in another person, it like grants it to them, so that if you recognize only the bad parts of other people, it's like you're keeping them stuck in that place. And then also it's doing the same for you, where it's like you are depriving yourself or crippling yourself in some way by not exercising your ability to love at all times. And I feel like also, because it is winter here where I live, maybe it's not winter where you're living, but on this card we do have like the snow falling, so maybe there's something to do with just like this feeling of being outside in the cold is really putting things in perspective about how privileged you might be to be having a roof over your head to be able to have the leisure time to be watching YouTube videos in a nice, comfortable, cozy environment, can really just put things in perspective of understanding how much potential you really have, of like the things that you could do, of like if there's people who are in a situation where they might be out on the streets or they just don't have that kind of reliable home to go to every day, but they're still able to keep fighting and keep achieving things in their life. Like, it shows you that you could be doing so much just with the privileges that you have, even if you don't necessarily consider yourself a privileged person. And then it's almost like these people who are struggling, who don't have the same privileges as you, it's like you could find a way to use your privilege to help them too. And it doesn't always have to be like giving financially. Like, I think that's what we understand as the most, like, okay, I'm donating money to a charity, but you could also be doing volunteer work on your own, like volunteering at a food bank or just some sort of arts outreach. But also, it doesn't even have to be like anything so concrete either. It's almost like, again, it's like this level of like vibes at all times. Like, you're just radiating love and care out into the world, where it's like, you know, our brains are naturally programmed to view homeless people the same way we view trash. I mean, like, this is not necessarily like everyone is like this, but they have done a psychological study where it showed that people's brains reacted in the same way. So it's like choosing to override that response that has been programmed into us by our parents or by media or that sort of thing, overriding it and choosing to extend some sort of loving care to the people who are in a, you know, sort of worse off situation in some ways than you. Or just like extending some sort of genuine love and care. Like, if someone asks you for change on the street, instead of being like no, or like refusing to even look them in the eyes, you know, maybe just like look them in the eyes, make them feel seen as a human being. And even if you don't have change on you, there's still a way to be polite about it that is in this loving manner that doesn't come off as just so cold and icy, right? We do like to keep it icy though. All right, we got the Ace of Wands and the Fool. So I feel like you're kind of discovering some new potentials in yourself, and you're ready to take a leap of faith with that, where I think that there's a skill that you kind of had like a latent ability, where it's almost like you had that skill all along, but it was just a matter of uncovering it, because really we're all attached to this sort of limitless potential that comes to us from the essential self, or from God, or whatever you want to call it, where, you know, sometimes we're taught like, okay, you're just good at one thing. Like, there are people who are good at math, and there are people who are good at art, and you know, you have a special talent for this one thing. Like, you're really good at this one instrument, or you're really good at this sort of social role in a group or something like that. And it's like we kind of put ourselves into this place, like, again, like with this tower crumbling, it's like we're starting to realize that maybe that isn't always necessarily true. Maybe you know, the things that we've been taught that we're good at or that we should be doing don't necessarily always align with what our highest self really wants. Like, that feeling of intuition to like really want to do something, and then it's almost where the mind can come in and cause some conflict, where you're like, well, I want to pick up this new skill or work on this thing that I've always had an interest in, like something you might feel like is your calling, but then you have this feeling coming in of like, oh, but that's not really my skill, it's not really my talent, I didn't learn that at a young enough age. But I think what the Ace of Wands here is really reminding you is that you do have this potential latent within you. It's like we all have it, and it's just a matter of unlocking it, or of like remembering it. You could think of it as like you've lived every past life under the sun, right? Simultaneously. In your past lives, you've been a master engineer, you've been a world leader, you've been a musician, you've been a visual artist. All of these things, you can just kind of imagine that as like, you know this on some level just because you are tapped into that source consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And so it's just a matter of reminding yourself, right? Like, when you want to learn something new, like, oh, you want to learn music theory, and you might think, well, I never did music lessons as a kid, or I didn't do that much, so I don't really know it, it's going to be so hard for me to grasp. And then you just stop yourself from even approaching it, and then you just scroll on your phone or whatever, right? If you just take that leap of faith, as the Fool card advises us to do, and you get to, like, I don't know, read a book on it, watch a YouTube video, however you best learn, you'll start to understand that, like, these things that you thought were like this obtuse, difficult thing to learn because you had the sort of academicized view of looking at the world, where it's like you had to be initiated into this knowledge by someone other than yourself, where it's like you needed a really brilliant teacher or like a parent to give you the permission to say you're good enough to learn this, right? You have potential to learn this. You're starting to understand you have the potential yourself. So like in the example I gave, like with something like music theory, it's almost like when you read the book, it's not so much like you're studying and needing to memorize things, of like learning it for the first time. It's almost more like you're being reminded of something you already knew, and it's just a matter of like refreshing that and reminding yourself. And when you look at things through that way, you understand that you could essentially learn any skill, you could learn any language. It's just a matter of you know, doing the right things so that you can actually learn it. It's like in a video game, right? We all start with our base stats in some way, where it's like you have more wisdom, you have more dexterity, you have more strength. But when you go and grind those stats, like, I don't know, you're chopping wood, and every time you chop the wood, you get 10 points in strength. Even if you were born with a 0 strength stat, by the end of like 6 hours chopping wood, you're gonna be like level 5 or whatever. So it's just like literally grinding it out and understanding that you can learn whatever skill you need. And with the Fool card, it is really about this innocence and taking a leap of faith and, you know, not needing anything to be carried with you. And that's kind of a similar energy to the Towers, like letting it crumble away, where you're kind of starting with a fresh slate, where you understand that every day could be a fresh slate. Like maybe you spent several years building a business and then you just decide, I don't want to do that anymore. It's almost like you can get into that fallacy of sunk cost, where it's like, but I did this thing for this many years, so that's me. I can't just give it up. I need to do something with it. But honestly, there's been times in your life where, you know, the tower crumbled and you had to start from 0, and you still did it every time. So understanding that you can start from 0 at any time, and that's like almost like a trap of the ego that gets us, is thinking that we can't start from 0. But understanding that like all of that stuff that's built up in the material world or on the level of ego doesn't actually matter to us, and in fact it is starting from that place of just pure consciousness, of pure experience, and seeing the world and your potential through fresh eyes is what allows you to really build anything that will last or really impact people in the world, or execute your unique vision. It's like you need that clean slate, that state of innocence where you have nothing with you, because it's like, it's almost like those things will hold you back, where it can almost be frustrating trying to start something new when you're still clinging onto this old stuff. So that's why you have like the Fool with just like the bindle, and there's nothing really in the bindle, or perhaps the tools of the magician are in the bindle. But there's this feeling like you don't need all that stuff, because it's almost like you are clinging to things and then you're trying to think, okay, how can I integrate this thing that I'm clinging on to into my new way of life? And it's like, you don't actually need to do that. You can just clear the slate and move on completely fresh. Where it's like, if you had built a business, you might be thinking like, okay, how can I try and monetize this so that it's still working for me now? It's like, maybe you don't even need to worry about that. Maybe you can just forget that it ever existed. Or like a group of people, you're like, okay, maybe I invested several years of my life into like building bonds with these people. How can I integrate them into this new project I'm doing? But if you're finding like it's not really fitting, and it's like you just don't click with those people anymore, and it's almost like they're a detriment to the project because they're just not the right fit for it, then maybe you can kind of leave that behind and realize like you don't actually need to be carrying all the stuff forward with you. So it's really just this process of reinvention and tapping into your own potential. All right, let's draw one more card to give you a little bit of guidance on how you can move forward in this next phase of your life. All right, Temperance. So really there is this feeling of balance, of like, you know, finding a happy medium and of walking between worlds. And this is really the constant battle, which is like, you can kind of look at it on the micro level or on the macro level. But of course, as you know, the microcosm and the macrocosm are very connected, where like the macrocosm exists in the microcosm. So everything that's taking place at a big scale is taking place at a little scale too, where it's like, if you're finding some trouble finding balance in just your day-to-day life of just like, I don't really know like how much attention I should be paying to this thing, or like how much I should like just assessing good and bad, right? Where maybe you have like mood swings just minute to minute. You're like, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling bad, right? This will magnify to your life on a greater scale, where you might be having similar mood swings of like periods of weeks where you feel down and periods of weeks where you feel more up. And it's like, because you're not just like finely tuning it. Like once you get it fully tuned, where it's like almost like there's these two lines that you're kind of bouncing back and forth between, but when you bring them closer together and you get like really tuned into it, then it's like everything just flows naturally, and you don't have those periods where things feel out of place or like things are changing. And like you can really get this like on a lifestyle level. Like I think Temperance manifests the most easy when you think about like taking care of your health, right? Like some days, there's days where you want to just relax and not really do anything and like rest your muscles, and that's okay. And then some days you want to go out and do a lot of exercise and really, you know, work up a sweat, push yourself to your limits maybe, and that's good because you're finding that balance of temperance in between the two, right? But if you swing way too far in either direction, or like you are trying to commit yourself to one thing where it's like, okay, working out means that I'm working hard, and lying down or just resting means that I'm lazy, and you're like assigning these polarities to it in that way, then it's almost like that's again where you bounce between it, or you feel like, okay, now I'm in my workout mode, now I'm in my relaxation mode. Whereas like it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. It's just like in every moment you can choose, okay, what is my intuition telling me to do? Like what is my body telling me I should be doing right now? And so it is really just like finding that balance in every aspect of your life, and just how you approach life in general too. Like this is really like the most microcosm of like moment to moment existence, is like being able to see that kind of non-dual view of the world, where it's like you understand that all this material ego stuff exists in a sense, but then also understanding that it's not really real. But not getting lost in either way, where it's like it could be easy to get lost in the material world of like all that money, all that matters is getting money. Yeah, money minded, right? Just like money, money, money. I need to get more things. I need to hustle. I need to grind, right? And then you're just like way too lost in the sauce in that. Or you could be getting way too into the spiritual kind of woo-woo stuff where you're like, none of this matters. I could just sit here and stare at a wall all day and just, you know, that's it. Like it doesn't matter who I talk to, it doesn't matter what I do. Which is like, that's kind of true, right? But it's like finding the balance between the two, where it's like, okay, I want the financial security so that I can meditate without having to worry about ending up on the street the next day, right? So it's like the temperance exists in every moment and it exists in every action, and it's just about finding that balance and like being able to integrate it all these aspects of yourself, where it's like where you might be having these kind of swinging back and forth is because you have these two different contrasting views in your head that are like demonizing each other, where it's like one is like trying to get you to hustle, don't be lazy, and the other one's like, oh, just relax, go easy on yourself, or like act virtuously, and the other one's like, oh, you can be a little sleazy, you can do a little bit of scheming, and you're like torn between the two, and you're like freaking out, like I don't know what to do, I don't know what to listen to, right? It's like this inner conflict, but you integrate it all into one, where you see that like, you know what, it's all part of the same thing, it's just different perspectives, and neither is right or wrong or good or bad really. It's just like the union of opposites can come together, and you can work from this space of just being able to see the contradictions in everything, and seeing that there is a lot of paradoxical information, or just concepts that exist in this world. Like the nature of the world is a paradox, so you don't have to bring that conflict into yourself of like fighting yourself because you're trying to work through the paradoxes of your mind. It's just understanding that it's inherently a paradox, and you can just choose from all the unmanifested possibilities what possibility you want to exist in this present moment. Alright, well thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to be posting some more soon, perhaps. And as always, if you're interested in booking a personalized reading, my emails are always open because I love doing those. So please hit me up if you're interested, and thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.